Welcome guys, I'm Follygon, and today we will be sculpting some fur, for the most part. I'm going to start off sculpting some fur, hopefully get finished with that, and then probably continue to make some more proportional changes and try to figure out a little bit of a more appealing direction to start to take this. Now that I've taken a little bit of a break from staring at this guy, there's definitely some stuff that I want to change. There's also some weird shadowy like pock marks that we're getting in our surface in certain areas, namely kind of flowing down from the nose and then back around the cheek, so we'll probably be working on that area quite a bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the fur, and then as you guys are jumping in here, feel free to ask any questions or just hang out, whatever, and let's get to it. If you joined us during our last stream, then you got to see... Oh, our music turned off here. Hold on a second, let me finish setting this up. The music froze. Not sure why. But if you were with us during our last stream, then you got to see me create the insert fur brush that I made. Really simple, just created one piece of geometry, and then we started doing some slight modifications to those to get some different S curves and C curves. So we have 5 different insert meshes that we can put in there, and then modify more after that. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Let's grab one of these and probably hide the ears for now so that I can get in here and insert this. I'm going to be making a lot of this symmetrical from one side, so it will appear you know, if this was perfectly symmetrical down the center seam line, it would look very odd, which is why I have opted to do that middle section there asymmetrically right here. So just breaking up the symmetry so we don't have that exact same shape. Let's see. Looking more like that. We don't want that. We want to break that symmetry as much as we can. But yes, welcome guys. I see that some people are starting to join us. How you guys doing? Hope your Thursday's going well. Let's get in here and start sculpting some fur. Now, these are all individual meshes right now, but we looked at a technique for how we can combine these and start to make these a little bit more I think feel a little bit more organic than what they are currently. Once we taper this up and get this to a little bit of a more finished, covered look, I think we'll be a lot better off, but at least for now, let's just finish getting these in here. And this will take a little bit of time. I think this stuff is kind of repetitive and a little bit boring, but it needs to be done, and this is a relatively simple way to do it. It's a little bit like a puzzle, I was saying in our last stream, just because you have to, you know, pick and choose each piece and try to layer them well. Along with that, when I am inserting these, I'm going to have to think about how I will be drafting these back to avoid any extreme overhangs or really thin areas or undercuts. And the main reason for that is just so that when we go to print this, we're not going to run into any failures. I'm sure there will end up being some weird areas no matter what, but I will do my best to get rid of as much of that now while we are in the earlier stages. The more I can get rid of that now, the less work I'm going to have later. So let's try focusing in here on that and just trying to layer some of these, try to make some of different sizes. I'm really trying to avoid having these all be at the exact same end point, you know, terminating at the exact same area. So I'm trying to have some that are shorter and longer, have some that more so cover the collar than others, and continue on around the neck. Tell me, what is going on? How you doing? Long time friend of the show, tell me. I'm going to try to do this a little bit faster. Try to just focus on getting a bunch of this in. It's okay if it bleeds through the collar a little bit. It'll probably be easier to just fix this later. So let's just get garbage in. Fill in any gaps. Something that might seem kind of like a big issue, like this little hole in the surface here. I don't need to worry about it too much because it's so tiny that, you know, that'll never be noticed. This is 2 inches tall. So this little area, under a tenth of an inch probably. Under a tenth of an inch, I mean, under a 20th of an inch, like, yeah. I'll just fill that in. That'll all blend out later. Won't even be a problem. Grab some more fur. I am liking the S-curve strokes a lot right now, so I'm gonna play with those some more. And after I insert all of these, I'm just rotating them a little bit to get more of an angle so we get that tapering up and then we can layer more on top. Not only am I rotating it, but I'm just using a fairly large move brush to quickly adjust whatever shape I do have. And I do have symmetry on right now. I'm fine with keeping this symmetrical across areas where essentially it will never be seen at the same time, so it doesn't really matter that much. But anywhere here in the front and in the back along the symmetrical axis, I will want to really break that sim. And just getting that done early is nice. And I've shown a few tests of combining this geometry. We'll look at doing another one of those in a little bit after we get some more fur, just so you guys can see what the more finished look will be. Before, I mean, like right now, it feels a little awkward. I think it feels a little awkward. Not that these shapes aren't clean or anything, they just feel very kind of out of place, in my opinion, with something that should be more soft. Continue here with our fur. So the basic technique, insert a bunch of these if you weren't joining us yesterday. And then after we get enough of these inserted, let's use this one as an example. After we get enough of these inserted on the mesh, what we'll do is we'll subdivide them a few times, run a Dynamesh to combine all of the geometry, and then we're just going to soften a lot of that form. And that's going to give us a nice, softer, more fur-like transition between all of these, with some actual end points that, you know, taper off in different directions. And for areas like this, we'll probably use that move back face masking to make sure that that's drafted back, make sure that that's not going to cause any issues. Back in here, we'll draft that back. Here on that end point, that'll blend into there, so that'll be fine. Getting a little bit of a hole in this area, but these are the little areas. I don't think it'll be too hard to clean up, but I just wanted to show off that technique again so that you guys can see it. And if we do want to push this even further, you know, we could take a pinch brush or a damn standard or, you know, whatever you want to play with and start really exaggerating these strokes even more. I kind of like the more smooth, soft look that we're getting throughout a lot of this, so we'll probably stick with something more along this line here. Just so you guys can see what that's going to look like after we insert some more of this. We'll probably just combine it all at once. I think it'll be a little bit easy, or we'll probably do chunks to Dynamesh those chunks and then Dynamesh everything together, just because in my experience, if you try to Dynamesh a bunch of separate subtools like this together all at once, you end up getting an exploded mesh, and that's never fun to mess with. That's very, very annoying. So let's avoid that and get some fur in here. If you are completely new here, and have no idea what you're looking at, this is ZBrush, digital sculpting software. I am currently working on sculpting a stylized version of my sister's golden retriever, one of them. His name's Weston. He's very cute boy. And we're trying to currently insert some meshes to make some fur. And I've created a little brush here with about 5 different kind of hair strokes. A lot of people call them hair tubes. Either or, doesn't really matter. It's just a quick way to start getting some fur or hair. I mean, you could use something like this brush to actually just create like some simple bangs for a character. I mean, obviously, maybe not on this guy, but it wouldn't be that hard to convert this brush to use for something else. And they're pretty fun to mess with. Like I said, it's a little tedious, I think, but it's also a little bit like a quick little puzzle. The hard part is just making the actual pieces of geometry that are clean, that you can insert. That probably took the longest amount of time. After you have that, just kind of piecemeal, throw them in. Make sure that you're not kind of doing what I just did here and getting 2 strokes right next to each other that feel exactly the same. I think we'll probably get one on top of that to break that shape up even more. So just trying to avoid any of these getting too close to together here. So I'm trying to spread them out a little bit better. I'm not doing a super great job in this area though. So I'm not using really anything too complicated for this, just the insert mesh brush that I just made, and then my move brush to push and pull some stuff around. I'm also using my transpose tool. You can also use the 3D gizmo, but I prefer the transpose line to do some quick little rotations here. I've just been using the transpose line for so long, I'm just kind of used to it. It's a good brush. Good tool. It's not really a brush. And that's probably about as close as I'll get on the symmetrical plane here. I will do more asymmetry as we keep going. Let's wrap this around closer to the back of the neck, and we will start, I think, by breaking symmetry and just putting some geometry back here. And overlay that over the collar, delete everything else, because I just duplicated that as a quick base to insert this on. And I'm trying to make these a little bit larger towards the bottom, and then they'll taper up. Plus it's just easier. The bigger they are, the less I have to do. And I'll probably adjust these some more after Dynameshing them together. But I'm trying to get some more variation between larger and small pieces. So if I have a few pieces here that are about the same size, I want to make sure that I'm getting some smaller, much smaller and much larger, at least half the size and at least double the size for some other ones. Just to continue breaking that up. And let's maybe get a little bit of a rotation here. I'm gonna be drafting these back, like I said, to avoid printing errors. So I want that to be as flush as I can get it to the collar as possible. Get some larger pieces in here. Keep inserting. I don't care about the back of the head quite as much as the front, so I'm trying to do this even faster back here. And I will get back to symmetry in a little bit. So can save some time. What I was actually thinking that I could do is take something like this and then turn this into an insert mesh brush and then just insert clumps instead of each one individually. I've tried that in the past though, and it's even harder to like puzzle piece stuff together just because you have such a specific shape. So I'm probably gonna avoid that this time. If you have more of a flat surface or more area to cover than what I do, I think that makes more sense. But at least for this, I'm just gonna keep doing this the way that I'm doing it. Let's go back to our symmetrical piece over here. Which one was it? And then start getting closer to the symmetrical plane. Oops. So if you don't already, I recommend setting a hotkey for your solo mode. I use it all the time when I'm sculpting, especially when I'm doing something like fur or hair or anything where I have a bunch of subtools or a bunch of different pieces of geometry. That solo mode, just being able to toggle between that very quickly, is one of the nicest hotkeys that I've ever set. I recommend setting it to G, the G key, just because if you're navigating in ZBrush, you typically have your hand pretty close to F, where you can like frame in on an object. So I pretty much always have my finger right around F and G, so I can use those quite often. That would be my recommendation. It's very good. Scale this guy up. Oh, let's turn on local sim. And the connection point here is going to be a little different, right? It's okay. We'll try to make this work. So this won't be perfectly symmetrical for these two pieces. I'll just add it to this middle piece though. Try to make it work. So this is a way that you can, still use symmetry to your advantage. Cut your workload, not exactly in half, but pretty close. And then in those areas where, it would look very awkward to have symmetry, you can break that symmetrical plane with just an extra piece that I'll probably carry up through the head. Like I said, I'm probably going to taper these as it goes up towards the head. Have them be larger at the bottom, smaller at the top. Just so we have that little bit of a... I mean, that's just the way it actually is. But I want that little fluffy kind of pull out around the collar, which is... I've started getting this. We'll probably exaggerate that even more once we soften this form. Like I said, depending on how many of these individual pieces of geometry we have, merging them together could pose some interesting problems. We'll see when we get there, though. Got a lot of gaps. I'm trying to fix some of these as I go, but there's really just a lot of them. Kind of tough. A little pullback with backface masking on the move brush. Need to make sure, one, that we're not getting huge gaps between these areas, and two, whoops, we accidentally Dynamesh that already. Turn that off. The other thing I need to worry about is just making sure that we don't have any really thin areas. It's definitely going to cause some issues for print. It's more my main concern, is some of these areas where we're tapering out. I should be able to fill in the gaps after Dynameshing very easily. Ancient, what's going on? Shader complexity. I have experience with shaders, depending on what software you're talking about. In Maya, specifically. But I don't do a lot of that in ZBrush. There's not too much in terms of shading in ZBrush. The most complex that you can get in ZBrush is using something like a quad shader, which I have created should have it imported right now. I do have a couple realistic skin shaders that I've created with standard material quad shaders in ZBrush, but that's about it. What these allow you to do, let's see, grab one of these. Go into our materials and modifiers. Each one of these shaders, this is the quad shader base material. You can essentially use each shader to do different things. So I think I have one of these set up for SSS and one set up for spec, and I think I just have a diffuse channel. And so this is my spec, diffuse, that's my SSS, and that's another SSS channel. So I have two SSS channels in this one. But we will not be using that for our good boy here. What's going on, head boy? How you doing? Related to Unreal Engine 4 for performance. Using a higher poly count up close. So you're talking about resolution based upon distance to the camera. I'm sure there are a million different ways to tackle your particular issue, and I think it's probably dependent very heavily upon what you're working with and what you're trying to accomplish. But I don't do a lot of stuff in UE4. I'm sure there's maybe somebody in chat can offer up some really good resources that you can check out. Working as usual, yeah. I figured. If you're on if you're watching stream, that means Hudman is at work. That's a guarantee. So I'm starting to taper this a little bit. I might be tapering the shapes too early because they're kind of getting smaller. So let's get some bigger chunks in here as well. UE4 does some level of detail stuff automatically. I did not know that. That's pretty neat though. Yes. Yes, it does. Where are our ears? Where is my super ear? Alright, let's keep bringing that up. I'm probably only going to bring... I don't think I'm going to bring a lot of the fur into the face. I'm pretty much thinking of cutting this all out. Like, bring the fur only up to about this area. Maybe have some, like, poofy areas around the tops of the ears and translate all that maybe a little bit into the ear. I kind of like the clean silhouette that we have in the ear already, though. We'll have to play with that. That'll be interesting to mess with. Raul, welcome. How you doing? What sort of printers have you used to create your models? I've done a lot of stuff with FDM, I've done stuff with SLA and SLS. For someone that doesn't have their own printer at home, I recommend getting obviously an FDM printer for your first printer. I really like the Fusion machines. In particular, I think you can get a pretty cheap Fusion F306 for a decent price. I don't know what they are now. But I did a lot of stuff. This is their newest one, the F410. Let's see. I don't know if they even sell it anymore. Fusion, in terms of FDM printers, I really like the Fusion printers. This is a very high-end FDM machine. It just has like a cage and everything else. I would not recommend buying this for your first printer. I would just buy like a really cheap FDM machine. I don't think it really matters. Just Google like good bang for your buck FDM printers. I I don't know, it's been a while since I've purchased an FDM printer, so. Or had to look at purchasing one. Alright, let's get some more sexy curves. That's what S stands for. If you're ever sculpting, try to get in those sexy curves. It's what your teacher won't tell you at school. The S in S curve is not for the shape, it's for how sexy it is. Same principle when we were sculpting our deer butt last week. Oh, by the way, I will shout out again that this Saturday we are doing another live critique session. So if you guys are interested in getting in on that, this Saturday at noon EST, right here on my Twitch channel, live critiques. If you want to get your sculpt critiqued or your 3D model, whatever you got, object, weapon, I don't care. Whatever you want me to take a look at, I'm down to take a Ganda. Send me a Z tool. Go to Tool Save As. Please don't send me a ZBrush project. Send it to follygon@gmail.com and just include some info about what you want me to look at. We'll give it a critique-a-rooney right here on stream. And if you're really early in the process, or you don't feel like it's up to snuff or whatever, don't feel bad. Don't get in that headspace. Just send it over. There are people of all levels that come and hang out here on the stream, so don't feel like you have to be the best sculptor in the world to send something in. Last Saturday, or actually the Saturday before last, because I was not here last Saturday, I was out of town. We had somebody who sent in their very first sculpt, like the first thing they'd ever done, which I think was really informative for a lot of people. And then we had somebody that was, more towards that, somewhere between beginner and intermediate, and we also had someone who had been sculpting for a little bit. So, whatever level. Follygon@gmail.com. Let's check them out. And let's get some larger pieces of fur. I'll probably run some kind of inflate on these as well, just because I think it's going to fill in a lot of these gaps automatically. I don't want to inflate too much, because I think when I tried to do it earlier, it screwed up the point on the bottom of these. It's actually not too terrible. So we might look at doing something like that. My concern is that these are too sharp here at the bottom. Even though they're tapering, which can be okay for printing depending on how thick the rest of this is, it can cause a lot of issues, and the more of these I have, the more possibility of failure and problems happening there will be. We can also get rid of that by doing some layering tricks, which I have an idea for. I'll show you guys that later on. And it's something I have done maybe like a year ago on this rooster character I was working on. I'll show you guys once we get to that point. Alright, so now we've kind of blended in that symmetry to a point where, you know, you can't even tell where the symmetrical line is just because of this piece here. So it's very helpful to do this kind of thing. Save us some time, so keep going on this for a while. Like I said, I'm trying to do some of these larger pieces on the back, especially. This is the side that doesn't matter as much. And I also have to think about how much volume this is going to add to the character. It's something I haven't really considered too much, but luckily, you know, we can just take a really large move brush to this stuff, shift it around, and I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. Kind of in the back of my head though, as a possible issue. BMS, what is going on? Trying to help out Ancient with his level of detail problem. I don't know if there's a ton of people that do some Unreal Engine streaming here on Twitch. I have seen some people in the past, but not too often. Maybe there's a couple people online that can help you out if you're still having trouble. Because this shape is curling, or curving up, I guess curling as well, it's a little bit harder to line some of this up. I just want to make sure that I'm still retaining the basic silhouette, although we are out much further. I'm going to keep that in mind. Get some more asymmetry flowing up to underneath the jaw here. This is gonna be where it's tough to curve some of this. So I essentially need to wrap these in on themselves. Probably easier to do some smaller ones. Plus, I was planning on tapering these anyway. Get some more of that size variation that I am lacking here in the front. What's going on? Pan Lethal, how you doing? Welcome back. Do you do commissions? Yes and no. You know, email me with what you're looking to do. I don't have a lot of time for commissions, is why I say yes and no. Kind of depends. Kind of depends on what it is. If you want to email me your project, I would be happy to take a look, though. And BMS is here for the puns. There have been no puns yet. Luckily, we have. I say that, and now that I acknowledge it, here they come. We're ready. This fur is currently rough. Har har har. I'll get the first one out of the way. Where's mine? There we go. Keep selecting the wrong piece. It's really hard to wrap these. Try doing this a little bit more manually. Ah! No! This is not what I want. Man, that sucks. It's gonna be annoying to do all those. Yes, yet being the key word there. Yeah, absolutely. Shoot that email my way, and I will take a ganda. Wasn't so bad on the flat area. Now that they're rounding up, it's just harder to control. Alright, let's do another test on this. I just want to see how some of this is shaping up. Oh, what is the best way to do this? Now, like I said, when you have a lot of stuff like this and you're Dynameshing it all together at once, it's very common to run into a lot of issues with how it will merge together. I'm gonna delete these meshes that I made. I don't think I need these anymore. These were what I used to make that brush earlier. Alright, we're just, you know, Dynameshing everything together, checking out how this is looking. See how it's kind of all just flowing together, soften this up. Got a nice flowing fur texture. Can even inflate some of this and Dynamesh it again, just to avoid any of those really thick areas. And we're probably smoothing a little bit too much here, but that's okay. I went a little low res on the Dynamesh. I think I dislike the inflate, actually. I think I actually prefer the sharper fur, but what that means is we'll probably have to come through and do some kind of drafting down here. Probably do this at an angle. Just pull in some of that. Make sure that instead of coming to a direct point, we get a little bit more taper on a lot of this. And I'll probably make some... I'll probably do this before I actually merge it together. Make sure that that will actually be printable. And then if we want to come through with something like a dam standard or, you know, our cut brush that I mentioned earlier and start shaping up some of this even more, I think that will absolutely be necessary. And before we merge this together, let's make sure that we get rid of any of these huge overhanging areas on top. All these, we'll make sure that those are flowing together more so like what we have down here. Getting too many little overhang areas. I've been trying to get rid of some of those while I go, but there's just a lot, so that'll probably be a minute of our time to do all that. Kook and Milk, what's going on? Welcome back. I'm just doing a test merge on our fur, seeing how it's going to come together. There's going to be some drafting that needs to happen, that's for sure. Yes, there we go. Yeah, we just got lots of gaps right now. And actually, I mentioned that there was a way that we can somewhat easily get rid of a lot of those. Essentially, what I like to do on stuff like this sometimes is duplicate it once, move it in, and even offset it a little. And that can help complicate the shape, can help make it feel even more thick, more furry. But of course, we do want to get rid of a lot of those little overhangs first. Those are going to cause so many problems when we merge stuff. So let's try to get rid of that. I do not want to deal with that. It's going to be terrible for printing. I'm thinking a really good way to go about doing that might be just doing some auto groups, doing rotate with backface mask, something like that. Any of these widely overhanging pieces, take care of them now. Backface masking can be used with any brush, but with your transpose tool, you get a pretty cool effect. So one of the basic reasons why you would draft something back, typically for production, is to avoid a mold locking up. And what that means is if you are molding a shape and you have a piece of geometry or you have something in a physical something that you want to mold, when you go to mold something like this, all the material for that negative will seep in underneath here, and when you go to pull that mold apart, what's going to end up happening is that this area will either get stuck, you can't pull it apart, or it'll just break off whatever this hanging down piece is. So if you draft that back, what that avoids is, material being able to get down in there, and then you won't have any of that occurring. The reason I am drafting back on these objects is because the little gaps that we're getting in between here, they're going to cause the Dynamesh to freak out. But also, for these little hanging down pieces, they're going to be much too thin for me to actually print for SLA. SLA has a minimum, at least on the printer that I will be using through Shapeways, their minimum requirement is, I think, 3 millimeters for unsupported wall thicknesses, which is what this would be, and then 5 millimeters for supported. I typically just get everything around a 5 millimeter thickness to make sure that I don't have to sit here and re-upload a file 20 times, making ever so slight changes to it each time. That gets old really quick. And I'm fine with paying, $1 more for something just to make the process take a day faster. It is worth my time. Alright, so that's what that drafting process will look like on most of these. Again, I can also duplicate some of this to complicate that shape even more. I don't know if that's incredibly necessary. I guess we'll see. Oh, I scaled that. So when you turn on backface masking for your transpose tool, it will backface mask on every operation. So I was using it with rotate, and then I just tried to scale, and it totally broke. So just keep that in mind. Alright, more furs. And we can maybe do some additional strokes on these if we want to complicate the fur texture even further. Har har har. But I think trying to go for some larger, simpler shapes would be a better idea. I don't want the surface to feel overly complex for something that's, you know, so stylized. Kind of goes against the initial style. I'm going to start doing this as I move forward, just so I don't have to do a bunch later and miss a ton of them. And if I really want to retain like how distinct each one of these shapes are, which I don't in particular, but if I did, I would use live boolean to merge all these together instead of Dynamesh. Dynamesh will help lower some of the resolution and get rid of some of those additional forms. I'll show you guys some stuff with live boolean once we get a few more of these hair tubes in, or fur tubes in this case, I guess. I'm wondering if I can scale a lot of these up at once. Let's hop into T-pose real fast. Just see if this is possible without completely breaking everything. I feel like a lot of these are just a little too small for my liking. So I'm going to put my transpose line, try to center that in on the mesh, and just scale up. Make sure backface masking is off so we don't break everything. And maybe just some pushing and pulling around here. I was not going to put fur underneath the ears, but I mean, most of it is seen, so might as well. Might as well do the extra work. like I said, this stuff is pretty tedious, so it's kind of boring in my opinion, but trying to make it go fast. Interested in live boolean, but you haven't toyed with it much? It's pretty easy, but there are a lot of really cool stuff that you can do, cool things that you can do with negatives that are really nice. Negatives and like an inverse negative. I can't remember what the operation is called. This one here, this last one. But live boolean's nice. Just the fact that you can pre-visualize your booleans before you actually do them is amazing. Before, you just had to, subtract something, Dynamesh it to subtract it, see if it worked, and if it didn't, you'd have to redo your 5-minute long Dynamesh, maybe. It was very frustrating. Especially when you are doing stuff for... What is going on here? That's very strange. Not sure why that was happening. Should not. Should just... I guess because of the sim? I don't know. It's fine. Just do it with our move brush real fast. I don't remember what I was saying now. Oh well. Something about live booleans. They're fun. We'll look at them here later. But we'll just be doing a positive boolean, so it won't be... actually, we'll look at live booleans for hollowing out our model, which is always fun. I actually did that for... If you're interested in checking out that process right this second, over on my ArtStation. This guy, if you get... Or not on my ArtStation, on my YouTube channel. The last video in the playlist of me working on this guy, I go through a lot of stuff with live boolean to hollow out and just get this thing print ready. Here's a fun little dragon bust to sculpt. I enjoyed that one. For creating mouth bags, yeah, you can actually use booleans for mouth bags. That is one way to do it. It's actually not a terrible way to do it. Pretty quick. And you can also, if you have like a mesh set up for your mouth bag, you can just reuse that. Like once you make it, you have it forever. You can just reuse it for everything and turn it into a brush and then insert it and then subtract it. I typically don't do it that way, but I have in the past. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's not... I prefer just like splitting off my jaw so that I can work on the upper lip and bottom lip separately. That's how I like to do it, but I mean, you don't have to do it the exact way I do it. I'm sure there are much better ways. I'm writing that down, yeah. It wouldn't take that long to make a brush either. Once you have the piece of geometry, you just boom, create insert mesh, ready to go. Save that brush out. Wham bam slam. Oh boy, do we have a lot of fur. Just trying to get rid of a lot of these overhangs before we go too much further. Sometimes when you switch to your sculpting brush from your transpose brush, you have to like double tap it, and if you don't, it'll think that you're trying to use some weird version of the standard brush. It might just be the way I switch between it with my hotkey. Well, it is. If you try to use a hotkey to switch to another brush from your transpose tool, like here, watch this. So I'll press my move brush hotkey. So it still says it's the transpose brush, but it's actually not. It's like a weird standard brush. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I have to tap my move brush twice to switch to it. It's weird. One of those weird bugs. Should tell support about it. I've never seen anybody else mention that one. And I've actually, it's just muscle memory now. I just double tap, my hotkey. I don't even think about it, but I should, because those extra button presses add up over time. Gonna wear down my 4 key for my move brush. Oh boy, lots of fur, like I said. This is a lot. But I expected this. I'm probably... Let's try to get some like tuft around the ear, maybe. See exactly how we could do this. Making these smaller. I was thinking about like sticking them out or something, maybe making them floof out more. Might cause some printing issues. Let's just experiment here for a little bit. See if we make anything that we like. Why can't I select that brush? So these are just the base inserts. These will be all merged together, as I mentioned before. So just try to get that nice, some kind of nice variation, some kind of base that we can actually, you know, merge and make some fur after. We could maybe, instead of this, just start like pulling out along this shape and start shaping that up with some like move AccuCurve, some of these other brushes as well, in terms of like a dam standard and pinch and all that. That's typically the way I do it by hand, but this is, I don't know, this is kind of working out for now. Where it will really matter is once we start merging all these shapes together. I don't know why symmetry is being so weird with this right now. It's kind of annoying though. Transpose backface masking with symmetry is being very strange. And not in a good way. Alright. If I ZBrush this, I think it's going to break a lot of what we made, but I'm just experimenting really quick up here, seeing if we can, if we want to even carry this shape up through to the top portion of the ear. I'm thinking maybe if instead of what I've done here, I would cancel that, but I know it'll break. Instead of this, where is this? Alright. Let's try something where we just make a few really big hair tubes. Try to get some nice S curve and some flow around here. Just have a few of these maybe. Try to make something that breaks up the silhouette some more. Get some more curve going on with these. few more going on. And the other option is to just pull out some of the shape around the hair. We'll see. I essentially just wanted to get a little bit of a tuft of fur going on up here. Let's keep going. Won't give up on it yet. It's definitely shaping up into more of a tuft, and now that we're getting more of those, I just don't know if I like the silhouette break that we're going to get from this. Let's go maybe a couple more of these. Maybe get an idea of what this looks like merged together, and then play it by ear. And when I said play it by ear, I did not mean because we're working on the ear. Just thought of that. This is why everybody comes in here and makes all these damn puns. Because I do it on accident. Alright, so what I want to find out is a few things. Playing around with inflate, playing around with scale, and maybe inflated a little too much. I think I'm fine with just, we're doing a quick test, seeing if we even like this. Wrong mesh there, that was weird. Seeing if we even like this idea. Yeah. Look, I very rarely make puns intentionally. It's not my job to make the puns. That's your guys' job. So I think this definitely could work for creating some like little floof around the ears. I just don't like the silhouette break that we're getting. We worked so hard to get this nice transition between these shapes up here. I think we should try to retain that. I think it breaks the shape of the head too much. And in general, I just don't like that shape. So I think if anything, we might get a little bit of that fur up there. I want to start fading out and tapering a lot of what I've done here with the fur as it gets up here towards the head. So I am probably going to continue this up until into the back of the head, up to about this line on the ear, and then probably end it around there. We'll see. I don't think we want to do too much more of this. Plus, I'm just getting tired of doing a bunch of random fur tubes here. Not random, but getting tired of inserting fur tubes. And I think we should have gone a lot larger on a lot of these. I think that'll be something I wish I would have done. I might be able to get away with doing some scale tricks here. I guess we shall find out. If I can, I will try to scale everything up. Unfortunately, you can't do that with the deformation palette because the deformation palette pushes out along the normal of each mesh. So that will get rid of the sharp points that we have. And that will end up softening these shapes quite a lot. I would just prefer to have larger versions of what I currently have. So maybe there's some quick cleanup we can do. Let's just finish this. I think less would have been more in this case, but that's okay, you know. Gotta experiment, try new things. I have done this with this method before, and I think that's the main difference between what I've done this time, is having a lot larger shapes. Maybe we'll just merge it all together and say screw it. Can you inflate all the hair tubes using the deformer? Yeah, I can. I've done that already. I was saying that the reason why I won't do that is because it will get rid of the sharper points that we have on these. We could individually go through and mask each one out just to like get larger tubes, but like I said, it pushes out along the normal. So when I inflate on a lot of these, what ends up happening is we lose that sharp shape. So they end up bubbling out. You can do it a little bit before that starts to happen, but you know, for the most part, you're gonna get a lot fatter shapes. So that's why I'm thinking that doing some scaling tricks might work. And what I mean by scaling tricks, we can try it right now. I'm gonna delete some extra meshes, head into T-pose, and try this out. And just scale this up to be a lot larger, and then just pinch in along all that. All of that, and just using a move brush, hopefully start fixing some of this. I scaled these up pretty large, so In terms of scale, that's not really much of a difference, so I don't know. I don't think it's worth doing it all at once. If anything, I would have to do these individually. Let's do a merge down, merge all of these hair pieces together. Yeah, here's everything with that deformer on. You know, very quickly it starts to turn into a mess. Even around 10 or so, I think it starts to lose a lot of that. A lot of what we wanted there initially. Could just go back and start manually sculpting some fur. Which is always still an option. If we want to play around with starting to rough up some of that. Just because I don't like the scale that we've done this at. I say we try to make it work, right? We've spent probably the last hour doing this. I don't know why that happens. Run a Dynamesh on this. Actually, let's, of course, subdivide it first, and then run a Dynamesh on it. Hopefully we don't get any explosions in our mesh. I don't know, maybe this is still salvageable up to a point. Whew. I don't know if I'm getting sick or what, but my nose has been running like crazy, and I've been, I don't know. Something is up with my nose. I don't really have allergies, so don't know what it is. But I think as we start to soften this more, I am liking the texture of a lot of this. I think we're getting some nice, nice flow, but also there's a decent amount of, randomness just from inserting these 5 different shapes. My concern is that they're just too tiny for this. Obviously we haven't, finished this up and blended it very well, but here, I guess as a quick test of how that would blend. Try blending just a few of these. And of course we would Get some subdivs on this to blend it a little bit easier. Just roughly, and get some of this going. Actually, let's just lower the res. Obviously not blending right here. This is not where we would end the texture. More close to the face. Just trying it out, playing with it. I think it's just too tiny. Something weird is going on down there with the material as well. Maybe we can just take all of this. Maybe instead of flowing the texture up into the actual surface, instead of doing that, really just hyper simplify everything and just do one bottom ring of a lot of these here so the actual surface is smooth. Let's try this. I think I might like this direction. And then blend into the surface, get some more asim there. Because in general, I just don't like the surface getting too complicated on this. I think it's unnecessary. I think it adds a thickness that we don't need. So what I'm thinking instead is let's maybe fit that silhouette a little bit more. Like, I kind of want the collar to be seen as the thing, so maybe not. Get some of this. Let's make these larger. Here, I'm just gonna redo this. I think I know what I want to do now. We played around with it for a little while, but I think I have a better idea of the direction I would like to do, like to take. And then we can blend these shapes into the actual fur. Yeah, I think this will work. We'll play around with this method for a little while, see what we can do. Maybe you're overachieving. In a way, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I think we were just needlessly texturing the surface to a point where I don't think it's necessary. Make the pun with golden retriever, but you aborted. Abort! Abort! Too many puns. Yeah, we've been relatively pun-free during this stream. Pun-free, it's the way to be. Remember those old drug-free commercials? Don't do drugs, kids! Just because of those commercials, I've never done the drug. Never once have I done the drugs. Alright, so I'm trying to make these much larger. And I'm gonna turn off, well, no, I'll leave the color on, I guess. Figure out where that's gonna be. And I am going to just try to do this bottom layer. Labassi, welcome back, and thank you. Appreciate it. We've been experimenting with fur on today's stream. I think I found a new direction that I would much prefer over our last very noisy fur texture that we were doing, where I was just getting way too small with a lot of these. Not only that, but I really just don't think it's necessary for the surface. I think it needlessly will complicate the silhouette. I think it was adding a lot of volume, and in general I just didn't like the direction it was going. But I think this is going to be a lot nicer once I do merge these in. And I'll show you how I'm going to merge them in. I'm essentially just going to merge it to a duplicated buck of the neck/head, and then go from there, but it'll be a lot more clean once we start combining it. Plus, this is going to be a lot fewer strokes, hair curves, hair tubes, whatever you want to call them. So it won't be quite as crazy. We still might have some issues with thickness. That's also kind of my other main concern with doing such a complicated fur texture for SLS. I think we'll be okay now. Let's not speak too soon here. Plus, I am someone that likes to be really specific with the shapes that I'm creating, and we just really didn't have that before. Let's try to finish this up quick. Still a slow going process. This is much easier to use this technique when working with actual hair instead of fur. It's because there's a lot less you need to insert. Even with something like this, I'm inserting a bunch of these. I'm just gonna insert a few of these. Try to do this quick. And auto group. And then use my transpose brush to quickly mask these off. Move brush to start pushing stuff around. Start realigning some things. Get rid of some of the gaps that we got going on. If you didn't know, you can use your transpose tool or your 3D gizmo to mask an object off by itself by control clicking and dragging over to another object. As long as they're separate meshes, it will mask off everything except for that piece of geometry that you just selected. Pretty handy, quick way to do a selection. Alright, let's do a test on this. And see how we can shape this up. So I'm just going to take this bottom ridge. Holy shit. Come on. Alright, Dynamesh this up. And then start blending between all these shapes. So to start off, I'll just be using a sharp soft edge brush. Kind of carry a lot of these shapes. Actually, let's just start with a pinch. Pinch up through here, so this is going to end up just flowing this shape up into the rest of this. Help to carry that through. And then what I'll be doing is remeshing this bottom piece, working on these transitions. And let's just do that now. Z-remesh this probably a little high just because there are so many individual strands, individual points there flowing down. I would also like to delete this bottom edge here. Let's try doing this instead. Maybe a quick little back face mask pull out on some of these, just to avoid any awkward thickness issues. And we will be heavily modifying these shapes now. Z-remesh, see what that does. Probably going to be a little messy. Probably going to be really messy in a lot of these areas, but that's okay. I mainly just want it to fill in a lot of this form. And then I can use the low poly topology that we have, even though it's messy, to blend a lot of that fur together. And hopefully we like this direction a little bit more. I'm thinking that I will, just because it solves most of the problems that we have. We still have some issues with thickness. I'm not even going to project these problems. I'm not going to project this shape, I don't think. Maybe a little. Maybe like one projection. You know what? No, that's fine. We don't need it. Got the collar, good. All right. So a lot of these areas I just need to start blending. I can use my clay tubes brush, trim dynamic, pinch. It's probably just gonna be a combination of a lot of those. Even some smooth. Gotta be careful with smooth though, just because it's so destructive. I just wanna start getting these blending up through here. It's gonna look a little awkward just because we have that underlaying piece there from the neck already blending there. So some of this is like weird through here. That's all right. That'll all blend out later. This is the main area that we just want to worry about. And very stringy right now, but we'll be correcting a lot of that as we continue to blend and adjust these shapes. Get away from a tentacle-y feeling hair. Get away from the hair tube feel. And like I said, we're probably going to modify this shape a lot where we do have it. Let's start working on adjusting where that pulls out. I just want the major kind of shape there. Kind of going back and forth between that because I want this major shape and I want the silhouette that I was seeing in that image, but let's try playing around here some more. Try to get rid of a lot of this. It's just kind of annoying in the way. My pen is still very, very frustrating to work with. It's because it's broken right now. But I have decided to buy a new one. I'm gonna wait till I get done with all my Christmas shopping for all my family and friends. That's just to get rid of that surface. I know it's very messy, but that's okay. It is okay to be meshy. We just need to start getting something down here. Some kind of buck to start getting this fur pulled out that we want to make. The problem that I don't want to get too far into... No, I can't pull it up right now. Wait till that's done. I'll show you. The main problem that I don't want to get into is that the fur on a lot of these images that I was referencing, you know, we could try to fill in this main silhouette here, just like 1, 2. I feel like that gets a little bit too boring, but maybe having those larger shapes wouldn't be a terrible idea. I don't know. We've pushed further and further into that stylized area. Let's get an idea of how that blends in there at least a little bit right now. I know it's not exact, but play around with that a little bit more. And I think we're still too stringy. So to get rid of a lot of that stringiness, I'm just going to start merging some of this together. I'm using my move backface masking. I'm just starting to connect some of these up. And let's start using that. I'm going to drop the res down really low here. Let's maybe start getting a little bit closer to just a basic shape. We'll try that out, because I'm really not liking this direction. Try something hyper simple. Some kind of pull out. Something that literally, let's just try. And then maybe sculpt some additional volume flowing down from the neck onto this shape. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really liking most of this, but we got to keep trying something for our fur. Fur. And maybe we can just take a break from fur and work back on our face for a little while. Just a really simple, basic kind of pull out right now. And then with that, what I was thinking that we could try was something along the lines of what I was doing before with hand sculpting the shapes here. Oh, I don't have any subjects. It's okay. So starting off with a sharp soft edge brush that I have. Building up those forms. Let's get a little bit more volume in here. Clay tubes. Let's get some of these longer strokes flowing through. Back to our sharp, soft edge. Get some of these negatives. And just continue blocking out some of this shape here. So it's starting to get a little bit more flow. Got to keep it, rough in the beginning. We're still just working on that big, large primary shape, right? Large first, then medium, then small. Don't want to jump ahead too fast. You'll end up regretting it. End up getting way too early into your small shapes. No amount of detailing or anything is going to help you, which is why I think these were just much too small. It's not that I hate the texture on these. It's just that, I could spend the time and carry this all the way up to around that baseline that I had before for the face, but I just think it's too tiny. I think it's too busy for the style that we have. So we're trying to do this, almost Disney-esque style here. Not quite, I would say. I don't think the eyes are as simple or as large as what we would see in a Disney style for a pupper. But I do just think that the texture is too small and too busy for something in this style. I don't think you could find something in this style that's going to look too great with something like this, which is why I'm trying to get away from that early, now that I'm kind of seeing, hey, I'm not really liking a lot of this texture that we have going on. I'm not a fan. Grab our Move AccuCurve brush. Actually, it's way too sharp. Grab our snake hook brush. I'm gonna play around with this a little bit more, and then I'm gonna run to the restroom because I drank a ton of tea right before I jumped on stream. I'm dying here. Alright, so some very quick rough moves. Very quick rough fill out for the form with our clay tubes. A lot of this is really easy to smooth back just because, I have these subdivs that I can step through. I tend to smooth at those lower subdivs, get that more clean shape. This bottom edge is being pretty troublesome, and there's really not much I can do because I don't have the negative in here yet. So I'm wondering, how can we play with that shape a little bit more? It's getting a little messy as well, color-wise. Tends to happen while you're stepping up through your subdivs, stepping up and down through your subdivs. I'm not a huge fan of that little, I call it a glitch. I mean, it's probably just a function of however the Polypaint is set up. I'm sure it has something to do with that, even though I have the exact same color here selected as what I'm applying to the surface. I'm sure it just has something to do with these lower resolution points. The way Polypaint actually works is, if you guys are familiar with PTEX works on per texture based face assignment, whereas Polypaint is vertex color. And that's really obvious when you have something that's low res. So if I grab a cube and append that, and I'll fill in this brown color, sure, that's fine. And then if I fill in a white, I can't paint on the actual faces. It's painting on the vertices, as you can see. So I'll paint on this corner vert, just so you can see what that looks like. So if I want to make these faces, white around here, I'm gonna have to fill in these following faces to get this face to be perfectly white. Or another way that you can kind of do that is possibly even select, just a specific face and try to fill in that color there. But you will notice that, let's see, get rid of that. It is somewhat blending out from those other vertices just because, again, it is vertex color and not face color. So you will have to up your resolution. Let's see. Or actually here. So what I'll do is select this polygon, Control W to polygroup that. I've turned off the smooth modifier for subdivisions, and I'll just subdivide this up a few times. And now I should be able to, oops, fill in that, and there you go. So if you're trying to get a little bit of a higher resolution shape, you're gonna need a higher resolution mesh for your Polypaint, which is, I think it's the trade-off that you get for using Polypaint over an actual texture map. But what's great is, you can remesh that later on, and then you can play with, actually doing, instead of just Z remesh topology, do your manual topology, and then you can come down here into your Polypaint menu, or I'm sorry, not Polypaint, texture map menu. Go into create, and just to show you this, we'll go into Z plugin UV master, and I will unwrap my puppy head here real quick, so we'll get some quick automatic UVs. And then what you can do is create texture map, create new from Polypaint. Actually, what you want to do, I'm not sure if I can blow this image up or not. Let's click on, I think it'll blow up if I click export here. Just so I can show you guys this really fast. And then I will subdivide this up, and then new from Polypaint again. This might not be visible on something like this. I should have, we'll see. I'll explain what I'm doing here in just a moment. I'll export this again, sure. And so essentially, you want to make sure when you're here in ZBrush that, stop going back there. Jesus, come on. When you're in ZBrush, if you are going to convert Polypaint to a texture map, you want to make sure that you're on your highest subdivision level, because it will take whatever resolution your Polypaint is on your mesh currently when you click that button. So I'm not sure if it'll be visible here. I think we don't have enough variation in our colors and shapes here to tell. Yeah, not really. If I put like a little white mark, you would be able to see the like bleeding that we had on that cube, much like where I tried to Polypaint one of those sections white. So just make sure that when you are creating a texture map from Polypaint, if that is the method that you're going, that you do go up to your highest subdiv. It's pretty cool though. I've used Polypaint as base textures before, and I have used Polypaint just as, you know, my texture for whatever I'm creating. Just straight Polypaint. Very nice, very nice. I like me some Polypaint. I like playing around with it a lot. But I'm gonna take a quick break, go to the restroom, because like I said, my bladder is going to explode. And then we will come back and either play with some more fur. There's still a lot of stuff that I wanna adjust in my face, probably get in the eyes. Still wanna create some eyelashes really quick, which will be very easy because we have a poly-modeled eyelid in here that we can duplicate and reuse. Other stuff that I wanted to do today before we end the stream, probably play just with the face. I think that's literally my main thing is like fur and face today. So we'll experiment some more with some fur when we come back and play around with our face. But yes, potty break for sure. And before I go, we'll get our quick little BRB in here. BRB PP time. Awesome. Alright, I'll be right back, guys. Alright, let's get back to it. Back to our puppy boy here. Undo our BRB PP time. And my mic working? Yes. Alright, cool. So let's take a look at what we have thus far. Just so you guys can see some of our... I don't have all my other images imported. Let me find some stuff. So for those that are just joining us, find my reference folder of our cute pupper. So this is my sister's dog. His name's Weston. He's very cute. Let's see. Find his little party hat picture. There it is. So I think he's like 6 years old, I believe. But yes, I am using these images as a reference to sculpt a more stylized version of Weston. I don't have his tongue sticking out yet. Let me turn that back on in just a moment. But yes, I plan on doing the other dog as well, which is Finley. Let's see, where'd our tongue go? And let's check out some stuff here. Alright, so a lot of what I did in the beginning was figuring out likeness for the face, just so you guys can see the process up to this point. Starting from a sphere and just sculpting up from there. So figuring out likeness, figuring out proportions, a lot of that is what I did in the beginning. And then from there, I just started doing some cleanup, started pushing more towards stylization, really cleaning up stuff, planing out hard edges, figuring out where certain plane changes needed to occur, and then a little bit more into that stylization, a lot larger eyes. That was kind of the big change that I made last. And now we've pushed that even further here, a lot more stylization, still trying to retain, you know, I think there's obviously a lot more likeness in something like this, and maybe we could go back to that direction for another sculpt, maybe for the other pup, because I plan on doing the other one. But I definitely wanted to try doing something more stylized from something that was originally more realistic. So now what I want to do, I mentioned before I went to the restroom that there were some changes that I wanted to make to the face, particularly right around the eyes and the brow and just kind of looking off the silhouette. Our eyes are much larger, so I want to adjust the lids a little bit more and still get some lashes in there, so that's another thing that we're going to look at. So just a few things here in the face, and then maybe we'll look at fur some more. What I would prefer to do with the fur is try to find something online, maybe from like a Disney movie or something where they've done some kind of version of stylized fur that I really like, that we can sculpturally reproduce, and then maybe go a little bit more in that direction. Right now, though, let's take a look at our face and try to fix some of the things in here that have been bothering me for a while. So, where is our eyelid here? We're going to start by creating some lashes really fast, which is something that we're going to see a lot in stylized characters. The method that I'm going to do for this, let's just very quickly take a look here at our lid. Just want to see something. Alright, cool. So let's adjust that color. And let's also get in here and ZBrush brush, bevel, edge loop complete. Gonna bevel that edge ever so slightly. Oh, turn off our extra eyelid. So a little bit more of a bevel, I think. But essentially what I'm doing here is softening the transition between these two forms here, this top and bottom edge. Starting to round that out quite a bit more. Let's put some subdivs in there, just see how that's shaping up. And I think that's much nicer than that hard edge that we had in there previously. The other thing that I want to do here in the eyes next is going to be creating some eyelashes. Now, if you don't have a piece of geometry that you have kind of poly modeled for your eyelids, I would recommend either doing that or just using some kind of curve mesh brush to create the basic shape, and then get to a point where you can only have just a single plane of geo, much like this, and then start using this to create your your lash. So this is something that you'll see very commonly in stylized characters, in particular in the Disney side of things. They'll have this single plane. You see this a lot in 2D illustrations where I might have some really good examples close by, but maybe we can find one really quick on ArtStation so I can show you guys a lot of... Here, just this first image. It's very tiny. Is there a close-up on the face? A little bit. But a lot of the time, you'll see this very just graphic, thin to thick lash that's just like a pure black rectangle, getting a little bit of that taper in there. Maybe here's another example. Let's see. Here's a 3D example where someone has done that exact thing that I'm just now talking about, getting that, thick to thin. Just very simple shape. Again, you'll see this in a lot of 2D illustrations. Just looking at the front page of ArtStation, we just saw like 3 right there. So it's very common, and to replicate this shape, it's really not that hard. Like I said, just try to get this poly-modeled basic plane. This is just one-sided geometry right now. We will be using, let's see, I'm going to turn off Polypaint. I will be using the Z Modeler brush to add some thickness to this, so let's do that. Z Modeler, and then I'm going to hover over a face, hold the space bar, go to Extrude All Polygons, just like that. Just a little bit of thickness, not too much. I want to make sure that I have my normals flipped the proper direction. You can do that down in your display properties, in your tool menu, display flip. And then we want to set the color here to black and make sure my material is set up correctly. Black, fill. And then I will need to set up creases for this to properly hold the shape. So I think just here, let's see, yes, one here, so crease, down here, and we should be good. Now, especially for, this is a little different because it's just a little puppy, but let's try to get a little bit more thick to thin, some of that going on here. So I'm going to adjust the shape of my lid and lash together. And just really try tapering in to those corners. I'll move the lid first and then the lash. Making sure that that's just sticking to that plane there. And it tends to give it this just very graphic feel. It tends to frame up the eyes nicely. Maybe we could go a little bit more thin in these corners. Let's turn off the lash for a moment just so I can see what's going on here. I'm just going to taper these in nice and tight. Taper that lash in. Follow that shape. Black is a little hard to see when you're sculpting if you have something filled in with a pure black color. So I'm turning on polyframe just so I can see what's going on very quickly. If you're having trouble seeing though, just toggle off your Polypaint and make sure that you have like a white color visible or something selected over here. If you don't have your Polypaint on, whatever color you have selected and whatever material you have selected will be what it defaults to. Let's turn that back on though. I think we could probably even taper this inner lid even more. Try not to mess up our nice curve that we have though. Cool. So pretty easy to frame up the lid that way. What I typically do is once I'm really happy with the shape of my lid, I will merge that into the rest of the head here. I don't really have much of a bottom lid to speak for. I kind of just hand sculpted this instead of doing it separately like I did for the top lid. And I originally did that for the top lid, but it was getting really messy, so we ended up taking a step back here. I think in terms of just the bottom lid here, I think I'm happy with just the shape that we have. I would like to merge that top lid in though and get this all nice and neat working together. I somehow accidentally have symmetry off here. That's not a problem though. Let's mirror all that really quick, get that back to where we want it. And then grab our head and our top eyelid there. Merge those together. I think this is going to be a great time for us to also merge our ears down. And I mentioned this earlier, that when I was going to merge the ears down, I would be temporarily rotating them out. And the reason for this, I might have to do that more than I thought. You know what? I think I will actually not do that. So the reason I would rotate those out is so that we don't get any problems with them getting welded down here. I mean, that's eventually going to happen anyway, so let's just go ahead and do it now. I don't think it'll be that big of an issue. Just make sure that the profile shape here is to our liking before I finalize that. All right, cool. So we'll take our head. Now we got lids, ears, head all merged together, and I think that's all that I needed to merge from here. I believe that is everything. So let's do a Dynamesh on this. You could also merge these together with live boolean if you were interested in playing with that, but Dynamesh is just going to give us, you know, resolution for what we need here. It's really not that big of a deal. We don't need a perfect connection point. Just good enough so that we can blend this stuff now that we actually have our ears and lids connected. I would like to retain this form a little bit here. I'll have to be a little careful with how I blend this ear. I'm just using some rough smooth brush right now. A little bit of trim dynamic, a little bit of clay tubes. Just very rough. Don't need to have this perfect, especially in Dynamesh. It's a lot harder to clean up your surface when you have a higher resolution mesh. But we will be remeshing this now. Get a lower resolution piece that we can very easily clean up. I'm gonna increase the target poly count, I think, to around 5. I'll aim for 5K. So the way ZBrush works, if you guys aren't familiar with it, with symmetry turned on, it's going to aim for creating about 5,000 polys or so on the left side of whatever you're remeshing. Could be anything, doesn't really matter. And then it's going to mirror that over to the other side. So our real poly count will be around 10,000. It's gone a little bit higher because it's trying to retain some of that form. So we're right around 13K or so. From here, all that's left to do, make sure our holes are closed. And then add a subdivision and a projection. Always yes. It's asking me if I would like to project Polypaint. I would. Add another subdivision, another projection, get that up there, and then I'll show you guys how really simple it is to blend these ears and these lids together. I'm actually not going to do too much blending along the eyelids. I'm going to Polypaint around there quite a bit though. Try to clean that up. So probably last subdiv, last projection, and then I'll add one more subdiv just because get around like 1 million or so, 1 or 2 million, get a little bit higher. 800K isn't quite as high as I need. I'll let that finish up. It's all done. Delete that old Dynamesh piece that we don't need anymore. Whoops. Turn off that old fur. And coming up here to the ears, it might be a little bit hard to see with the Polypaint for you guys, so I'm going to turn off the Polypaint just so you can see how kind of uneven the surface is here. And now using some stuff like Trim Dynamic, Clay Tubes, Smooth Brush, just very carefully come through here and start blending a lot of this together. And I'm stepping up through my subdivs as I do this, just so I can get a nice, clean connection. And I know a lot of people that are kind of new to sculpting really struggle with getting a clean surface. I always say that it's something that just comes with time, with mileage. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Obviously, just like with anything else. It really does take a while to get used to, though. There we go. Those ears are blending very nicely now. My only problem with them right now is we're getting a little bit of like a weird dip in the silhouette, so I'll just make sure that all this is, you know, having the correct volume in here. Maybe add a little bit more volume, pull that out. But with the move brush, making sure that my silhouette is blending really nicely through there. And it is now blending a lot more smoothly, a lot more clean. Got a really nice silhouette going. And let's take a look at our eyelids too. Fix our material and everything else. What's going on, Daggers? Welcome back. Currently fixing some stuff in the face. Lots of stuff in the face, actually. Alright, so I think we're just getting a little bit dark in and around the eyes, a little bit darker than I want. Let's see. My Polypaint has gotten a little crazy during the projection, so I'm probably going to redo a lot of that, which is fine. Let's clean up this connection. Make sure we don't have any weird stretching going on. I'm going to have to look at the negative of this ear as well. This point might be getting too thin through here. Let's see. It's probably fine. I think there's enough room in here that this sharp transition shouldn't be too much of an issue. So I was talking about how areas would get too thin possibly, where it's like coming down to a point, like down here, you know, coming down to a point, right? I'm trying to mask this. So you come down to a point, but the same is true when you have a negative. You could have a piece of geometry that pulls in like this, and it might cause some issues based on the infill area, which is what I was looking at through this area here. I think it's okay. Based on, I mean, I could do some measurements, but just based on my eye, like I think we're cool. Yeah, we're definitely over 5 millimeters, which is good. Good for me. I'm doing great. Doing great, Daggers. How are you doing? We've been playing around with some fur. We're fixing our face now. Lots of things in the face that I wanted to fix. And then we'll be looking at fur a little bit more, possibly here at the end. Or if anybody wants to see anything specific, we can take a look at that. I'm always open to answering questions. Don't feel like you have to wait for me to be working on something specific to ask that particular question. Like if I'm working on the eyes, don't feel like you can't ask me a question about how I poly modeled the collar or the tongue or something like that, or the nose or whatever. I'm gonna adjust some stuff around here. So I'm in Transpose Master right now. I've had a few people asking me about Transpose Master lately. I'm not sure why. Like, Transpose Master is one of the first things that I learned how to use. It's a very, very nice Z plugin. It's been around forever. It's in your Z plugin palette, Transpose Master. T-Pose Mesh, it allows you to take all your subtools and work on them as one mesh, make an adjustment, and then transpose back, and it'll make all those changes to the subsequent individual subtools. Very nice. I use it all the time. I don't know a professional that does not use it. It's an awesome tool. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Would Z-Remesh again. So we've made our eyes much larger. We have just lost, a lot of the likeness because we've gone so far into stylization. I've tried to exaggerate a lot of the things that we've kind of missed out on by going into more of the simple and clean shapes that we have now. So I think a little bit more of that. In terms of the head shape, I think we're all right looking at the top silhouette. I'm not too upset with how that's looking. I think most of the expression, I don't want to open up the mouth because it's going to thin out the lower jaw quite a bit for printing. Thinking maybe around the eye shape a little bit here. If we can get more of that top corner, that would be nice. And the actual mouth, schnoz, whatever you want to call it. Let's see here. I wanted to play with exaggerating the smile even more. I mentioned this in my last stream. I don't know, how far can we push this goober? We also need to get into asim with a few things in the expression and the tongue. Everything's still symmetrical, just because it's easier to manipulate everything this way. Keep it all symmetrical until we're ready to pose. In this point, we're not really posing, it's more just expression. Let's see. A little bit more pull out. I think we're just getting too much taper there. Just trying to get that to be a little bit more parallel. Then get that nice hit right here in the surface as that starts to turn. So come down and then in. That little bit of a trapezoidal shape as we wrap around the mouth here. And another thing I would like to do is actually try flattening that, make that surface turn even faster. We'll see what this looks like though. You know what? I don't actually like that flattening too much. I'm fine with moving that as a whole though. And coming up here through the mouth. I just want to play with this shape a little bit. I think I have one, maybe like a single image of his profile without him smiling, without the cheese. So I wanted to get a lot of pull up around the corner of the mouth and still retain this nice sweep through here for the silhouette. Let's play around here. Perspective is very annoying when you're trying to mask something orthographically. That's why I'm getting some issues there with my mask, but I think we're good now. Let's take a look here along the mouth again. Trying to get a little bit more of an S curve flowing there instead of just what we had before, which was that straight up flow. Again, we'll turn perspective back on. I'll just start adjusting this curve some more. If anything, trying to square off the head, because we're getting a little bit too much volume on the sides. And let's see. Keep going back and forth on the volume around the bridge of the nose between the eyes there, flowing up. I had it very, very large before. I don't know, I was kind of liking the thinner direction, but I don't know. We can play with that a little bit. Let's see here. Try to be careful with our selection this time. Play around with this shape. Going for more of a thick, kind of squared off silhouette. We can square that off a little bit more. Or get more of like a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. Or maybe just kind of keep the in-between that we have right now. I think this is way too flat, but let's try shifting that upper point of the brow maybe forward. Or actually, let's just play around here with this shape. I have this kind of pinched off in the back, flowing between, essentially, you know, flowing back from here, and then we have the hit right around here, and then a straight down for the back of the neck, which was intentional. I think that maybe the transition there is just a little bit too sharp. Try and soften some of these forms. Turn perspective back on. And we can T-pose back to see how those shapes are affecting our subtools. Oh, and I had solo mode on, so that's unfortunate here. Let's do this. Just so we can see the difference. Alright, so that was a pretty big move for the eyes for sure. So let's go back to where we had that. So we pretty much shifted the eyes and the mouth up quite a bit and then fixed some of the issues that we had in the silhouette, just rounding off back here. I think this is much nicer. It still gets us in that clean area for our stylized pupper. I don't know, you know, I think we could maybe move the eyes out more, maybe just make the head a little bit wider. Let's see. Just try to get the likeness for the cartoony style even more so. So to do that, I'll have to create a new T-pose mesh. And for our selection, I'll probably do everything except for the mouth. Let's do a really light mask. And then try just very gently pulling out, widening that head a little bit. Let's see. Try to push it a little bit further than what we would do normally, maybe, just to get an idea of how far we could actually push this. I don't know, do we like the wider head? I think I do like the wider head a little bit. And possibly, this is warping our eyeball, which is fine. I should be able to adjust it after we're done here. I'll just have to undo the changes to the actual eyeball. Whoops. Let's continue to pull these out some. I'm gonna see if insetting those helps the likeness at all. Because I feel like just a little bit more inset, a little bit more shadowed through there. That actually helps with just the shape of the thickening up that bridge that I was mentioning earlier that I wasn't sure if I wanted to do or not. That feels a little bit more, a little bit closer to maybe what we're seeing. Let's take a look at how drastic of a change that is. I think it's pretty minor, but I think it adds a lot, especially around the eyes. Like I said, there are some changes that we will have to make with our eyes now. For show, for show. Let's take a look at our profile image one last time here. Definitely more squared off. Let's get a little bit more of a curve here. Angle. That's the word. Just thicken that up. I do like that we are getting that nice transition here into a straight though. So I am going to retain that. Alright. Now, when I did... oh, you know what? No, I didn't. Actually, I did fix it already. I was going to say my symmetry did get messed up earlier. I forgot. I fixed it. Alright. The eyeballs. The eyeballs are all non-cylindrical... or spherical. Cylindrical. Non-spherical anymore. So I do need to fix those real quick. Looks like our eyelash is messed up a little bit. Not sure how that happened. Alright, quick fix. And I just have a black kind of iris pupil combo right now. We can maybe do something with that later. Let's see. Just trying to grab this rotation handle here. Move our light around a little, see how we're liking the new shapes. I think in terms of just likeness for this, again, more I wouldn't say Disney style, but more cartoony style now. I think we're around in the area we want to be as compared to our previous version. Let's see. So small changes whoops, wrong one. Sorry. Un momento. This one's also kind of dirty with the Polypaint, which is fine, but small changes add up quickly. You know, there's not a huge difference here, but here maybe we can jump back and forth between the two quickly so you can see that difference. So small changes add up pretty quick. So I recommend, if you're struggling seeing where to move forward on even a particular sculpt, I often recommend this. If you're struggling with seeing some improvement in your work, is to go back and look through some of your old work. But even on a singular project, I think it's really helpful to go back through and look at some of your older versions of your file that you're working on. Also, if you're not saving in with any kind of version control, the smallest amount of version control that you can do, I recommend, is just, you know, every however often that you save, just try to save out a new version and append like the date or the time or whatever version you're on. I just save out the file and I append a new number behind it. So this is the 5th version, right? I just Weston 5, whatever, and go from there. Do you have the eyes pointing out a bit? Yes, quite a bit. You'll see this on human characters as well. Let's see, I'll load in. This happens on real humans as well. Mine's obviously exaggerated a lot more just because of the shape of his head. Where is my witch? I cannot find my witch. Let's just look at here. I'll open up something else instead. I can't tell if it's importing or not. Whoa! Don't crash. So it looks like these eyes are looking pretty much dead on. I have perspective off, but even with something like this, the eyes are pointing out a little bit. And that's because, well, this is something that naturally happens in humans, but you're gonna look cross-eyed if you make your eyes face directly forward. Or your character will look cross-eyed. Is my pen not working? Alright. It's just being really laggy here. Not sure why. But yeah, with those eyes facing forward, directly forward, you end up having a character that looks cross-eyed as opposed to having them out further. Pretty much, this is just how your eyes work, you know. Focus on something a little bit further away, your eyes tend to go out a little bit further. If I'm focusing on something a lot closer, I might look a little cross-eyed, but that's about where your eyes are looking, you know, dead on, straight, with your, I guess, Z-axis. That's what that would be. Same thing here. Obviously, even exaggerated quite a bit more. Nice sculpt. Been watching the last few days. Like the layout, especially custom menu. Was wondering if you're sharing it somewhere. You are not the first person to ask. You can get my custom UI. I'm not sure why you would want it unless the only place that I include my custom UI is on my Quick Start course on my Gumroad, which is linked below. The only reason I include it in that one is because I highly recommend for people that if you're brand new to ZBrush and digital sculpting, you know, I think trying someone else's UI that's already kind of set up for working in a specific manner can be really nice, especially if you're like getting mentored by them. But if you've already been sculpting for a little while and you have your own custom UI, I recommend just maybe if there's something you like in my custom UI, maybe you can like steal a few things mentally and like update yours. But that's why I don't have it individually listed. But if more people keep asking about it, I probably will eventually just upload it so people stop asking me. That's how everything has gotten up on here. Like, people kept annoying me about the cube tube brush. I was like, guys, it's so easy to make. I even made a video on how you could make it. And finally I was just like, fine, here, it's uploaded. You can have it. Stop asking about it. I'm sure I'll end up uploading my custom UI eventually. But my recommendation is always make your own stuff, just because I think it's nice to know how to do it, and you're gonna customize it to your own liking. Hold on a second here. I'll add you to the tallies of people asking. What's going on, Tim? Yes, it is in the supercut, that's right. Let's see, some more stuff for our face. Kind of want to fix some stuff here on the mouth. This is all just one mesh. I just want to make this a little bit more clean. This form starts to subduct more than it should. Starts to like turn a little bit too early. And I'm just gonna pick up on a lot of these little things as we keep going. But I am at that stage now where I can start looking at small things. A lot of the time people get caught up in the little things a little bit too early, I think. And it's really just not worth focusing on. Not until much later in the process, where if you mess something up, you're gonna have to redo all those small things over and over again. And you will mess stuff up. Like, you're not gonna get it on your very first shot perfectly. Like, sculpting is it's a process, right? Definitely takes time. I also want this form to kind of wrap and blend around here a little bit. I have that going on a little here. Let me move my light up. Try to get a little bit more wrap. And I have like a little bit of a pinch in there. Maybe grab just a mask, probably. Use our move brush. Not a huge fan of inflate for most stuff. I used it on here a little bit earlier, but kind of in the earlier stages when everything's really messy, it doesn't bother me too much. But when I'm trying to do something more exact, I think the inflate brush is kind of a pain to try to get it to do exactly what you need. It's really powerful, it's really destructive, and I have to turn the Z intensity down on that thing like to 4. It's just hard to get it to do exactly what I need. Clay tubes brush is really nice though. I like using that on low subdiv, smooth out, clean up some form. Trim dynamic is really good as well. Keep flowing through here. Alright, so I've cleaned up that curve a little bit, but it's not flowing super great through here. Let's just make sure all that's nice and clean. I might want to soften that transition around our lid as well. Let's take a look here. I'm not sure if I need quite such a strong transition here. Probably end up softening this quite a bit. Try filling that out, I guess, just a little bit more, and then blend that with our trim dynamic. I just don't want too much volume kind of stair-stepping from one surface here to this next one from this angle here. I think what's fun, and also probably the most frustrating of doing something like this character, this sculpt, is that, you know, we're going off of something more realistic, so I don't really have a style guide that I'm aiming for, which is, you know, never a fantastic idea. I try to gather as much reference as I can. I just wanted to try and experiment, you know, take something more realistic, something I haven't done in a long time, and turn it into something more cartoony. It's been fun. If I was gonna redo this from the get-go, I'd probably try to find something a little bit more specific that I liked in terms of a cartoony style that I wanted to aim for. A little bit more of a style guide, and head more in that direction a little faster. I think that would have made things a lot quicker. But like I said, more of experimentation in this case. It's kind of my goal of doing this project, to play around with it and figure out if we could make something that we liked. I think it's looking alright. It's in the right direction. Not as good as I would like it to be though. He's still fun though. Let me delete this guy. Alright, so some cleanup to the mouth, cleanup to our eyes and ears, blended all of that. Let's start doing a little bit of a sim, make sure we're doing okay on time. So to do that, let's see, transform, symmetry, make sure sim is off for all this. So if you're just joining us a little bit late here into the stream, we started off by doing a lot of stuff with fur earlier, and I was thinking about how I could blend this into the sculpt. I ended up thinking that, you know, I'm not going to use this. Was kind of the final decision that I made on it. I might go back to it just because we put so much work into starting this fur texture. I don't think it's terrible. It's just my idea was it looked too busy for something in this style, and I think it's okay, especially if we do some blending later on. But I still feel like it's too busy. So I tried thinking about maybe going some alternate routes with starting to, that's all messed up now, but starting to just do some quick pull out shapes to start generally creating some strokes for some directionality for the fur. I don't think we're going to do that. If anything, I'll probably go more of that general route with the with this fur here. Let me fix the material on this. The problem, I have a few problems with this. The major one being what I just said about it being too busy. The other one being that for 3D printing, I want to print this, and the main issue there being that a lot of this gets noisy and it gets very thin down here. We have a lot of undercuts, we have a lot of really thin areas, and those are going to cause a lot of problems for printing. I think I would like to try making this fur texture work. If I can make this work, awesome. If it doesn't, you know, it's not the end of the world, and I don't think furless Weston in this style looks too bad. This is kind of common in terms of what you would see in a similar style. We were looking at the Disney Dalmatianes right here. You know, pretty clean silhouette, and that's pretty standard for this style. So it doesn't hurt my feelings. I did want to give him some eyebrows here really quick too, and maybe play around with adjusting some other stuff in the face. But if you are joining us here towards the end, welcome guys. If you want to check out the entire process from beginning to end, there are some videos over on my YouTube channel. We just started from a sphere. It's typically what I do. Start from scratch and start sculpting up my different shapes. It's a lot of fun. I like doing most of my stuff just from scratch. I think you learn more doing everything from zero. But, you know, in a production environment where you're trying to get stuff out the door as quick as possible, a lot of the times it's better to just cheat as much as you can just to get the project done. But let's do a quick little eyebrow here and figure out what we want to do for an eyebrow. Because really, I don't know. I did want to give him an eyebrow. I just didn't know what shape or color. Everything else. Here, let's Z-modeler. What's up? Why can't I? You guys see that? Can't click my Z-modeler brush. Why can't I select my Z-modeler? What? That's so weird. I guess. Huh. I have no idea what's going on. But when this kind of stuff starts happening, it means a crash is typically close by. So let me save this and probably restart ZBrush so that I can crease this. It's very strange. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how I missed this at all. Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry, guys. I've had my alerts muted this entire time because I was streaming on the Pixelogic channel last night. Totally forgot. But Bacon Bolts hosting with 19 viewers. Thank you and welcome everybody that's coming to join us. For everybody that's just joining us, this is my sister's puppy. His name is Weston. He's very cute. We are taking a realistic doggo and turning it into a cartoon doggo. I'm actually at a point right now. I did turn on my alerts, so all those should start firing off now, hopefully. But my Z-modeler brush right now is broken. I can't select it, so I just saved this out, and I'm gonna restart ZBrush. So sorry about this, guys. Kind of bad timing, but gotta restart ZBrush real fast. Let that do its thing. While that's loading up, if you guys want to check out my Gumroad, it's just gumroad.com/Follygon. Tools, tutorials, brushes, materials. Holy crap, this is bright on my face. Thank you. Gumroad.com/Follygon. Alright, let's reload in our boy here, our doggo. Like I said, don't know what was going on there. Z-modeler brush. Now it's working. No idea. Sometimes ZBrush just likes to mess with you, I think. See how far it can push you before you go crazy. Let's grab our Z-modeler. what I wanted to do was use the crease edge loop function and delete edge loop function to clean this eyebrow up. And we will delete edge loops. Delete a few of those. Take a look at how that's shaping up. And play around with color, size, thickness, all that good stuff. Oops. Typically when I'm doing stuff with eyebrows, what I like to do is grab just a black color, grab my Polypaint material, ZBrush. I don't like the pure black on this. I think that'll look silly. I also think the edges are going to be too sharp for what we want, so we'll adjust that as well. Let's just head back to our sculpting material here. I do not have my image imported anymore, so let me grab that. Yes, the ZBrush goblins must have messed it up. Dang ZBrush goblins. Let's see. Grab my reference. One of them. Grab a different one this time. And I wanted to give him some eyebrows just because I think it would add some expression, be more in that stylized direction as well. In terms of shape though, I don't know. What do you guys think? Go for that kind of sad puppy dog look. It's kind of the direction that we've already gone here. I don't have symmetry on, so that's kind of annoying. How do you bring up that wheel? This thing here? It's the Z hotkey. All of this is in your texture menu. It's working with the spotlight tool. Shift Z is the hotkey. If you hover over any item, it will tell you the hotkeys for it. So Shift Z is how you open and close spotlight, and then the Z key pulls up your spotlight disk. You have to have an image imported in the spotlight though to make that work. So what was I saying? Sad puppy dog eyebrows. What are we feeling here? What are we doing, crew? I'm liking the sad but cute direction. Can try that out. Change the color to just the fur, and maybe we can add in like 10% black or something. Whoops. Just to make them ever so slightly darker. Again, I will also soften the edges on this because they're pretty hard right now. So we just need to adjust that, which is very easy to do. I'm just trying to figure out a basic direction, basic shape for these. Seeing if they even add much in terms of expression, you know? Which I think they do. Just following that shape along the brow, I think is probably for the best. And then fixing some of the stuff that I'm doing here with the tapering as well. And in terms of softening this up, instead of like beveling the edge or anything, what I'm just going to do is add some subdivs and then use my smooth brush. A little bit higher res here. And I'll just manually play with this, play with thickness. Change direction here, maybe a little. And give me a deformation inflate here. And if I want to adjust this on a really simple level, I can always subdivide or step back through my subdivs. I think I'm liking this shape a little bit now. Maybe we can try a little bit of a darker color, or what we can do is just merge these into the head. And I can show you a quick buck example of that, just to get an idea of what that looks like. Let's see. And then maybe we can just sculpt up the fur around here instead of having that be separate. So a little bit more. Yeah. I think I might actually like this direction a little bit more. I want to keep this clean though. Maybe make sure that's transitioning well on the outer edge. So essentially just getting some more volume through there. I don't like the way it's transitioning right now, so we would definitely need some more blending. As opposed to the harder shape, I think what we could do is do a little bit of a an in-between there. Kind of half and half. Whoa, that is pulling out really far. That is what I wanted. That was weird. Let's try this on the inner edge here too. Just so that tapers down a little bit nicer. Get a nice flow to it. I don't know, I think I like the clean kind of separation here. A little bit thicker. And let's see. So for full color printing, what I'm thinking is that we would have to, at least from, this is going to be about 2 inches tall. I have some figures here on my desk that are roughly 2 inches tall, so just kind of lining that up on screen. I think that we'd probably want to darken these for SLS. So maybe darken just a little bit more. And the way I'm doing that, by the way, is I'm switching to a pure black color, and in using the fill object button, you can essentially insert a small percentage of that color using the RGB intensity slider. So along the nose, if I want to make the nose a little bit darker, I can fill in 10 or 11% of this black color onto the nose, one click at a time, instead of just transitioning at 100% directly to black, which I don't want my nose to be pure black. I was just filling in a little bit of that, getting that to be a little bit darker. And yeah, let's see what our eyes are doing. I'll probably bake in a little Farkle reflection for our eyes, just so that comes through in the Polypaint for the print. Yeah, let's do that real quick, just so I can show you guys what that would look like. Just a really simple, quick way to do something like this would be to grab your IMM brush. And the reason why I'm doing this as geometry instead of just directly Polypaint is when you're doing stuff for SLS full color sandstone. Let me see here. Grab our face cam here. This might be. These are all pretty tiny and difficult to see. Let's see here. For Volfree, this is Vulpix and Butterfree fused together and then 3D printed with full color sandstone, SLS. So for the eyes, to get the separation between the colors, I know it's maybe a little tough to see here on this camera, but to get that separation, you can just Polypaint that, or what you can do with my method is by using geometry to retain that form. When you go to decimate it later, it will retain that shape much better, because if you remember what I was showing you guys earlier, Polypaint is purely based on the resolution of your mesh. So if you get rid of that factor where you have a nice clean cutoff between geometric pieces, Decimation Master will recognize that seam and retain that edge for you really nice. So we'll just insert a sphere right here on the eye. I know it looks very odd, just kind of plop it right here. And what I will do is just move that into the eyeball. Probably just flatten it a little bit so it doesn't stick out too much. This is at such a small scale. This is 0.03, 0.04 inches in diameter. This is very, very tiny. This will not create a bump on the surface at all, but it will come through in the paint. So it's a little bit of a trick to get that to come through for SLS. So I will get rid of the material on here on these eyes. And let's see. So I've kind of manually baked in that little reflection, right? So now we can move this around. I'll just move it one at a time. The Babu, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. I think, whoops, let me turn that off. Something along those lines. I might change the placement here a little bit more. Whoops. Trying to figure out the read here from what scale this will actually be. Much smaller. From what I'm seeing on my screen, like I'm talking about like 2 inches tall here, 2-ish inches. So about what I'm seeing here on my screen, probably a little bit different for you since my Cintiq's, I would guess, larger than your monitor. So about 2 inches tall at about this scale. I think that reads pretty good here. I might shrink them down a little bit more though. I was noticing some problems here with my lashes. We're also going to do some more stuff with asim, especially like along the actual symmetry plane here. The tongue, adjust all that. Let's see. Will you sculpt him with fur? So we were experimenting with fur, that's what this mesh was, at the beginning of our stream. I was playing around with, I'd never finished this, I didn't carry it all the way up through here. The plan was to take these shapes, and then as they got closer up towards the face and everything else, they would start to taper more and more. And then we could, after we were done with all of that, do a merge on all these with like Dynamesh or something. I'll let that do its thing really quick. And then take these shapes and soften these form transitions. Get something a little bit closer to this, and then that could be our fur texture. I ended up deciding, I don't know if we'll continue along this track, but I decided that I think this is to look too busy. Maybe you guys don't think it looks too busy, I don't know. But I think it looks a little bit too busy for the style that we're going for. I can continue to make these and continue to like flow this up into the face, like I said, and start to taper them smaller and smaller. It absolutely can work. I don't know if I want to do all that work for a texture that I don't particularly feel in love with. So we'll see. We'll be doing some more experimentation with fur for sure in the future, but for this one I'm not too positive yet. Like I said, I thought it looked too biz. Looks too busy for how small it will end up. That was the other thing that I was thinking of. Like, I don't know how much of that texture will actually come through. Here's another 3D print, full color sandstone 3D print. I don't know how, you guys probably can't see, like looking at my camera here. In person I can see this feather texture that I've done for Hey Hey. Mayor Hey Hey, by the way. Business cash, or I guess not cash, but just all business. I think it actually came through a lot better on this one than what I was expecting. I think on something like this, I'd like to do some kind of larger texture. I don't know. I want to find something online that I really like, and maybe try to aim for that. I haven't really found anything yet, though. I've just been talking about this on stream, thinking out loud. Let's see. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Now that I actually have my alerts on, again, sorry about that, guys. Completely forgot to turn that back on. Normally, the only thing I need to turn off is this little title bar when I'm streaming on the Pixo channel. But occasionally, while I'm streaming on the Pixologic channel, I'll get my alert sound to go off for my channel, even though I'm on theirs. So I toggle that off. But I think I want to do a few more changes here, symmetry-wise. Break sim some more, and then probably gonna grab some lunch because I'm dying. I'm not dying, but I need some food, and it's way past luncharoony here in the East Coast. All right, so let's start by hopping into Transpose Master and really breaking sim. Start with the mouth, the schnoz as we call it. Just do minor changes at first, just like some little push and pulls around that I would like to play with, and then maybe we can give him some tilt to his head. I don't know. Can play around with it. Doesn't have to be, too crazy here. Any tips for sculpting paws? I don't know. Take your time. I'm not very good at giving too many tips in terms of like sculpting specific things. I sculpt everything like the exact same way. I grab a sphere and then I sculpt what I see. So in terms of like workflow, a lot of what I do is exactly the same. Like, I don't know, start with your basic shape. This is probably what I would do to start blocking it out. Get your little pads going on here. Obviously this isn't grab a reference. That's a good piece of advice. When blocking stuff out, I tend to just, go as quick as you can. Don't waste time trying to get everything perfect, especially during the block out phase. Wait, what? What is this? I don't know. Take your time with it, like I said. Same advice that I give on sculpting everything. It's not a race. Grab reference if you're going for realism. Grab lots of reference in that case. Go crazy. I really don't believe too much in general advice. I think most general advice is bad advice. So I tend to not enjoy giving advice for that kind of stuff. But you seem like a smart lad. I think you'll kick that Paul's butt. Yes, reference. All the reference. Babushka. Isn't babushka grandma or something? What does babushka mean? Alright, so like I said, just lots of little small tweaks trying to break sim. Lots of tiny little tweaks that hopefully add up. What the heck is this material? Thought I set that up. Paws have butts? I don't think paws have butts. Paw. What I was doing with the spheres to just block out the shape was to create like the main few sections here of the pad, and then what I would do is like dig in a little bit around there. I would probably even separate the toes. I guess it depends on what type of paw you're sculpting, doesn't it? Why is this stuff appearing for paw? Paw Pups. Okay, cool. Yeah, I would probably keep some of the toes and pads separated. I split stuff up like a maniac though, so it's really up to your own discretion. Go crazy, go ham. It does mean grandma? Okay, that's what I thought. In Russian? Ah, that's the piece I was missing. Your name comes from an ocelot. Babu? From the show Archer. Ah, I have seen Archer. I don't think I've seen the most recent season. And I was watching it on Netflix. This was like a year or two ago. And the last season that I saw was the one where I can't remember where they went, but it completely like broke the norm for the show. They like went to New York or Florida. I don't remember where they went. They went somewhere. It's not important. That ocelot, yes. Everybody knows that good old ocelot. Let's see here. How are we looking? Some tools are fine. You split things like a madman? Yes. My thing that I always say is when in doubt, split it out. Just because I deleted all the versions of my deer from our last sculpt. But the more you have stuff split up, the more control you're going to have over the surface. You'll actually see a lot of sculptors work this way. It's just easier to control like the level of resolution. I would say it's more common than it is not to see people sculpt that way in ZBrush. I would also say that if you are sculpting with just like a single subtool, you're probably very new, very green, and it's gonna show in your sculpts. Try to split things up. Try to get more control over your surface. It will help you. It will help you a lot. The only ocelot you recognize is the one from Metal Gear Solid. Very nice. I've never played a Metal Gear game, but I have. I know things. I know things about it. An old roommate of mine used to play it on his PlayStation. I'm wondering if I want to draft this a little bit in terms of thickness. What are we looking at? Ugh, too thin. That's what we're looking at. Needs to maybe be like twice as thick, but instead of doing that, maybe I can just get a decent taper here. If I can get it to taper a little bit nicer, I might not have to worry about it. I'm probably going to do a test on this relatively soon, just to see how well it can print for this scale. I don't imagine there being many problems at this scale. The only real areas that could cause problems is this tongue and maybe the ear a little bit with how thin it gets for the connection point. Other than that, I think it's totally okay. The fur texture, however, would cause quite a lot of issues, which is why I've somewhat strayed away from that. Top 3 stealth games. I take that back. I have played Metal Gear, but like once, and it was at a friend's house when I was a wee lad, and we were fighting Psycho Mantis, and we didn't know what to do. So we eventually just gave up. This was back when my friend had a PlayStation, I did not, and he would just rent games from Blockbuster all the time, back when Blockbuster was still a thing. And I'd come over and we'd play like Kingdom Hearts or whatever he had rented out for that week, and we'd play it on the weekend. But yes, Psycho Mantis. We had no idea what was going on. We were not smart enough to figure it out. I'm getting like a weird shadow here. Not digging that. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's move our light around a little. Ah, I see. That should do it. A little bit more blending, I guess, through here. Just make sure that's nice and clean. Whoa, whoops. Alright, cool. Q. Spooky pup. Getting some more extreme angles for the light. Alright. Splinter Cell. I don't know if I've ever played Splinter Cell. Lamentios, welcome back. Yeah, he's getting there. He's getting there, but appreciate it. My favorite stealth game is definitely 007 Golden Gun or whatever on the N64. Yeah, the best stealth game. That and Mario Kart are my two favorite stealth games. So, very good. You know, you just sneak up behind with that blue turtle shell. Never see it coming. Alright. I think that's looking pretty good for that transitional area now. For the bridge of the nose there. Much happier with that. We're getting a little bit of a tight pull in around here, but I don't think that's going to cause much of a harsh shadow or anything. Based on what I'm seeing here with our light, I think we're alright. What do I play? I currently have been playing Destiny 2 with some friends, only because we like to have an online game that we play with each other, and it was free, and I haven't played an FPS in quite a while, probably since... I haven't consistently played an FPS since probably Halo 3 or Modern Warfare. Those were probably the last FPSs that I played consistently. Played a lot of Rocket League for a while. Haven't played that in a long time now. And right now I just pretty much play a game on my phone occasionally. Play a game or two of Hearthstone on lunch or on the toilet. That's about it. I don't really have too much time for games anymore, or I don't make time for games too much anymore. But like I said, you know, maybe like a couple nights a week, some of my friends will get together and do some PvP for Destiny 2, which is fun. I enjoy it. It's nice to have an FPS again. But other than that, that's really about it. That's really about it. I do have a Nintendo Switch though, and once Smash Bros. Comes out, I'm hoping to play that as much as I can, which I think will probably be about as much as I play Destiny 2 right now. Probably a couple nights a week, or whenever I can sneak it in. That'll be fun. I'm a huge fan of Smash Bros. As some people in the chat, I'm sure know, that come and hang out. I am a huge fan of Melee. Love me some Melee. I'm really into competitive Smash. I just don't play it anymore. Rocket League, yeah. Rocket League's awesome. It's really good. It's probably one of the best competitive games that I've played ever. RL and Clash Royale. I think that's a mobile game as well. I'm not sure. I think that's like the next version of Clash of Clans. I don't know if people still play Clash of Clans though. Who's your main? In Melee, I like playing Sheik, Fox, and Captain Falcon, just because Captain Falcon's so much fun to play. But I like Sheik and Fox if I'm going to actually try to win. In Smash 4, I don't think that game's incredibly competitive at all. I think it's actually a pretty bad game for a lot of reasons. I think it fell into some of the problems that Brawl had. Brawl was the worst, though. Like I said, I like competitive Smash, so I really like Melee. In Smash 4, though, I think I played Mario a lot, and then it turned out that people found out that Mario was like one of the top tier characters after they nerfed Diddy Kong and DK's up throw up air or whatever it was. The hoo-ha and the ding-dong or whatever. I think that's what they were called. But yeah, I like Mario for Smash 4. He was just a really fun character to play. He was fast, he was small. Before they nerfed his down, what was it? I think it was down throw, and then you could like up tilt somebody like 6 times in a row. Then they nerfed that, so you couldn't do it. But yes, I like me some Mario. Fox OP, not in Smash 4. Most people that play Smash 4 a lot now, I owned every Smash Bros. Like when they came out, but I didn't know too much about competitive Melee, and I didn't know about the game that existed in the game. Like, Nintendo created Super Smash Bros. Melee, but the community ended up finding the competitive game inside, which to me is just like Melee. It's just like, this is the game Melee. It doesn't even, I mean, it still is Super Smash Bros., but it's so different. There are all these mechanics that are just intentional and unintentional. Like, L canceling is not a thing that they put in any of the other games. I have no idea why. It's such a good mechanic. And then just the ability to wave dash and have movement options with like tilts and jabs and everything else. It's just really, really good. And the ability to actually juggle. Oh man, I could talk about Smash all day, but I'm not going to. Let's see. Am I excited for Smash Ultimate? I am. I'm excited to play it, but you know, I think it's going to be about as I expect out of Smash Ultimate what I got out of Smash 4, which is not too much in terms of the game that I actually want. Yeah, Ryu's in Smash as well. You love Melee, but you're not about to learn how to wave dash. Wave dashing is like the easiest thing to do in the world. It's really not hard. And it's not even necessary to play competitively. L canceling and teching are like, in terms of advanced techniques, like If you got that, you can get pretty far. Insert Shia LaBeouf here. All right. Well, I think we've kind of stopped on progress on this guy, and we've started talking about Smash. But I need to go grab some lunch because I am dying. In the next stream, we'll probably be looking more at some stuff with fur. I don't, like I said, I think this got a little bit too busy, a little bit too small. So maybe we'll do some larger versions of that. I'm going to try to find something online that I like and try to replicate that. I think I had like one example of some fur cloth over here that I was looking at. Maybe something like this. This is really messy though. I'm not a huge fan of this. This is by Borislav Kachashki. I don't know. You can look them up on ArtStation if you want to check out their work. But maybe we'll try and go in that direction. I don't know. I like how clean this is looking though. So we'll figure it out. The only other thing I'll shout out here at the end of my stream is what I do every time. Gumroad.com/Follygon. I'd appreciate it if you checked it out. There's a link down below. Tutorials, courses, base meshes, brushes, materials, all the stuff that I use for my professional work in the toys and collectibles industry. If you're brand new, I highly recommend my Quick Start course. If you're more of an intermediate or advanced sculptor in ZBrush already and you're looking to level up your game, I would recommend my Stylized Characters for Toys and Collectibles course or my Female Appealing Face course. I also have my render setup and all sorts of other stuff on there that I would appreciate if you checked it out. And I just want to say thanks for coming and hanging out, guys. If you're joining us a little bit late, all the streams go up on my YouTube channel. It's just Polygon. Just Google me. I'm sure you'll find all the links there. Lementios Hudboy, Dalton. Is it Dalton? Your name is dark and hard to read. Dalton Moss, 3D, BMS, everybody else that's lurking in chat. Thanks, guys, for coming and hanging out. Streaming tomorrow at noon EST right here on my channel. And then Tuesdays at 6 p.m. EST on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel. And Tim, and everybody else. Absolutely. All right, again, next time, tomorrow, noon EST, try to look at some fur. I'll try to find some stuff that we can do. I will see you. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.